Are you ready to unleash your full potential and become unstoppable in your success and leadership?
Welcome to the Unleashed and Unstoppable podcast, where we provide powerful insights and strategies for coaches, corporate leaders, and entrepreneurs. I'm Alexanne Carter.
And I'm Carol Register, and we're certified master neurocoaches who are passionate about helping you overcome your limiting beliefs and optimize your performance.
Each week, we'll be sharing actionable tips and strategies using neuroscience, from interviews with industry experts to solo episodes, to help you lead a life of power, purpose, and possibility on your own terms.
Join our community of like-minded individuals. Hit subscribe now, and let's be unleashed and unstoppable together. Hey, highly ambitious leaders, high achievers. Man, are we excited? You know how excited we are. We are here today with Jeremy Van Wert, and let's go. What an awesome person that we have been able to connect with. And he's going to bring you some incredible value to assist you in your journey of being absolutely unleashed and unstoppable. He is a seasoned coach, a licensed psychotherapist, and a former CEO in the corporate space. And he's made absolutely significant strides in personal development, mental health, throughout his 2-decade career. We're talking about experience here. We're talking about real knowledge, a seasoned veteran who knows what it takes to assist you in your journey. And he's a healer, right? We're healers and transformational coach. And Jeremy is driven by a compelling mission to change lives from stress to joy. Yes, I'm in on that. I get overly serious, right? Don't we all? And he takes you from stagnation to momentum and from burnout to hope. How powerful is that? This is the things we talk about, right? And look, Alex Leon's getting choked up right now. He's got a strong foundation in resilience, personal strength, and teamwork, and he harnesses, inherent positivity. And yeah, I love the joy and the humor you bring, and you make me laugh, and it's such a powerful vibrational frequency, and you really motivate others to surpass their perceived limitations. Perceived, I love that word. His coaching is specifically designed for high-achieving individuals, skillfully removing barriers and expanding visions and consistently revealing untapped potential. I don't know about you, but I'm like getting so excited just reading this, and we're going to dive in today to something I'm not going to mention here. It's going to be a surprise for you. So stay through, because you're going to want to know about this. And it's a particular area that he's been becoming an expert in and can really bring some insightful knowledge and how this can help us on our journeys. And I can't wait to share with you about his book. His book has just been released. We're going to dive into that. And Jeremy, I can't wait. What's the title of your book? I'm so glad you're here. Welcome.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful introduction. I'm so honored by it. Yeah, my book is called There Is More: Living a Life of Expansiveness in a World That Is Not Perfect. And it comes from just really wanting to tell the story. So I was one of those little kids that was diagnosed with ADHD, and the teachers didn't quite know how to deal with what my mind was like. And I was always up and rolling. I couldn't pay attention in class. And so the idea was that if you can't pay attention, if you can't memorize and regurgitate things, and you don't learn like the other kids, that there's really quite something wrong with you and that you need some sort of special ed to sort of help. And the testing revealed, much to my teacher's surprise, that my IQ was through the roof, but that I could not sit still. And this was back in the early 1980s when there still was a lot of research to be done on ADHD. And throughout my life, it has been an ongoing struggle of trying to figure out how my mind works. And I've worked so hard in the early part of my life to conform, that if I could conform enough, that I could get the things that I wanted. And I turned down some relatively incredible things in my effort to conform. And one of the things that I talk about in my book is that I was a talented drummer when I was in my late adolescence and early 20s. And I auditioned for a little group that nobody had ever heard of at the time called the Blue Man Group. And they called me back and they offered me a spot in their Blue Man Group Academy. And this was at a time when they had only been on Leno one time. But they had been on Leno, and so I was in the midst of going through my bachelor's degree and I thought, well, this sounds neat. But I think the safe decision is to stay in school because that's what they've always told me to do. And if I conform to what society wants of me,
Mhm.
then I will succeed, right? And so there I was a few years later with a bachelor's degree working as a security guard in a social security office when I could have been on Broadway. And so one of my very first kind of lessons in the importance of going with the spirit of you, going with the authentic piece of you. And unfortunately, I had a number of more episodes of making decisions that were the safe and conforming ones before I kind of recognized there's really nothing that holds you back
Mm.
from being bold, from making the decision to truly live your real purpose in life. And that, I'm not going to lie, it takes sacrifice, it takes hard work, it takes strategy, it takes committing to it in a way that you've never committed to anything. But then all of a sudden, you really get to live and you really get to design the life that your mind was built to live. And so the book is really about the embracing, coming to finally embrace who it is that I am and how my mind actually works. And that I'm really good at some things and I'm not so great at other things. And that I'm finally at a space in my life where I'm embracing that and helping others come to the realization of how to embrace that piece of them.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible. And I use the word powerful a lot, Jeremy. When I say powerful, I'm really talking about being able to close our eyes, open them again, and create a better world. And this is exactly what you're speaking to, and directly addressing that external approval piece versus the internal listening, knowing, connecting to our hearts. It's like heart, mind, soul. And, you know, listening to this journey, man, I have stood on the sideline a bazillion times when I think back over my history and childhood and to hear this powerful example of where you could have stepped into something that would have been absolutely transformative. And I love knowing your history about drum corps and what you participated in and the discipline that goes on there and the creativity, super powerful, right? Um, so I would love it if you would take us even deeper on this journey of transformation and your walk through it.
Yeah, this journey, and here's where we kind of go into the topic that you were alluding to at the beginning. Really, I was living this very conforming sort of life. And I was late in my 30s, well into my mental health career, when I had my first psychedelic journey. And
Oh,
this journey, it was not what I had expected. I expected just an evening of a fun time with some old friends. And instead, what I had was this deeply rich profoundly spiritual experience where I actually saw myself for the very first time. I actually loved myself for the very first time. I actually
Wow.
appreciated how different I am for the very first time. And to actually have that experience, to actually finally be okay in the moment, no anxiety, no
Mhm.
fear, no what do I need to be doing right now,
Yeah.
no where do I need to be tomorrow, but just simply I exist beyond the confines of my schedule, and that I
Mm.
could see my existence outside of my body. And it changed the way that I viewed trauma and anxiety and depression and existence and spirituality. And so I had a lot of thinking to do after this kind of primary experience that was done in a very safe and nurturing environment, where I had to rethink everything that I was taught in therapy school about how to care for people. Because in therapy school, you are very much taught how to treat symptoms, how to
Mhm.
help people with breathing exercises, how to help people relax their muscles, how to help people tell their trauma story over and over, and so that they can come to a place where they are no longer affected by it. These are all great things, but I had stepped outside of my normal consciousness and recognized how much more love, connectedness, and
Yeah.
um, compassion that I was capable of for both me and the people around me. And so
Mhm.
this is where it launched me into this whole wonderful amount of research into human potential and this medicine that has been
Wow.
so deeply maligned and
Mm.
so badly misinterpreted in our modern civilization. And it has been made kind of tantamount to the most ugly of drugs that really do ruin people's lives, when this medicine is something that for human history has had such a deep and profound history with almost every single culture that there has been. And that we are kind of living in an anomaly of history now, where this has been essentially taken from a population and made into something that is not a healthy thing. And so in my study of this, in my journey to learn more about this, I learned a great deal about how richly healing this can be for the way that you see yourself, for the way that you can let go of some ugly things that may have happened to you, where you can really gain that high level of forgiveness for people who have perhaps wronged you. And that you can maybe for the first time just go, you know what, this is me. I am this thing that I've been kind of running from. And so it's not like you come back from this and go, okay, now I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to sell my house. I'm going to go live in a yurt somewhere in New
Mhm.
Mexico. Although that sounds cool.
Yeah.
You,
Yeah.
um, you now have greater insight into your heart. You connect your heart with your mind. Whereas we live in a very information filled world where we're
Mhm.
constantly scrolling, taking in information, a lot of it that makes us upset, a lot of it that divides us from other people, all these different things. And we don't necessarily spend a lot of time connecting our hearts
Mhm.
with the way that we process. And I know it's just been a long time problem that I've had, where I've had to really reconnect my heart with things because I think too much.
Yeah.
So, so what I have done is I
Sounds
have taken.
familiar. Sorry.
That's one of the things with high achievers is that,
Right.
we get so into the processing of things. We get
Hmm.
so into the thinking. We get so into the strategy. And then all of a sudden, we're
Yeah.
not connecting with the people that we love. We're
Mm.
working 80-hour work weeks. And, look, I've been there. I've been a CEO, and I've at times asked myself, okay, what could I take that could help me work all night? And that's a dangerous question. But
Yeah.
that's where you get when you're at that executive level where you're like, okay, I'm giving everything and it's not enough.
Yeah.
And in that, the question is, Are you really in the right space for your health and your life and your family and your destiny and your spiritual walk and everything? And so I pull all of these different things together, the spiritual, the psychological, life meaning, the kind of Jungian walk and everything like that to help people really land on what their potential is. Because I mean, I've worked with several attorneys who are really at the top of their game and they hate their lives. They're drinking too much. They're drinking coffee all day.
Yeah.
They have to take, THC or melatonin just to get a couple of hours sleep at night,
Mm.
because their brains are moving so quickly, and it's so hard on people. And so to really build a strategic framework for what your life is about, taking into account who you really are and really landing on who is the authentic Carol, who is that person, and do you even love that person? Do you even
Mm.
know that
Yeah.
person?
Yeah.
And being able to process old things that maybe you're at this achievement level because you're still trying to prove something to you about you, uh, you know, that you proved a long time ago, but you have this kind of neural pathway that makes you think that you have to prove it every year of your life,
Mm. Yeah.
and so working in this realm of tying in human potential and the spiritual, it helps people really land in a place where they feel more comfortable about who they are and where they really need to go, as opposed to where they have gone so far. And it can help people even be more effective at what they're doing.
Well,
My brain is all over the place. There's so
I,
much great stuff here, Jeremy.
yeah.
Well, and what you're speaking to, I know we spoke about this before we started recording, and it goes back to my clients I was with this morning, and we were literally talking about the fact of, they've been doing something for so long, and it just becomes like that's the wiring, that's the belief, that's how they feel like they, should be showing up, how they should be spending their time, what they should be after. And I know I've been there too.
Yeah.
And then when they really got like quiet, they realized, well, actually, I kind of want what's over here. But
Mm.
what was happening is that this is so ingrained because this is how it's always been up until now.
The conformity.
Yeah, the conformity. And it's like, and maybe that was the vision. I know that that's what happened with me, right? I had the vision, and that was the vision up until I realized, like, actually, is that really the vision? Is that really what I want? And it's like, how do you go from here to then over here when you do have such the conformity, society, expectation, even
Approval.
the approval, but even
Yeah.
that thought of failure, right? Because
Mm.
it's like if you set the goal and the target over here, and then all of a sudden you're not there yet, but as you're inching, you're like, but is that really what I want? But if you now jump ship to go over here, what about everything that you've said, everything you've worked so hard for? And now you're over here. Like, I just think of even the internal battle of identity, right? And who you are, and yes, that high
Mm.
achiever. And really, I'm curious if you've encountered that, or how to talk through that or walk through that for a listener that might be in that position, right? Like, they're here, they want this, but yet it's just that constant inner battle of like, yeah, but
You know
like,
what? I'll
you know
tack
what?
on to that too, Alex Leanne. I mean, I'm thinking what you asked Jeremy, and Jeremy, how has it changed for you between transformational coaching and the psychotherapy? You touched on the
Mm,
psychotherapy and what is delivered through that platform. And so as you're walking a client through, getting to know who they really are, how has that changed from a coaching world perspective?
So therapy is great, and that weekly walking through your insides and stuff like that, and it goes so far. Coaching, what I love about it is that I get to really make a relationship. I
Mm.
get to bug you on our days off. I get to send you texts and go, "Hey, have you done that thing today? Are you feeling discouraged? Are you feeling, on top of things?" I can jump on the phone with you a whole lot more. It's much more of the everything in one. And
Yeah.
it unleashes many things that, I can most certainly utilize my therapeutic skills and everything like that, but I can pull into the room so much more and create an actual framework for somebody that I can hold them accountable on. And there's a greater expectation that they have to get something more out of the design that we've worked on together. And so what I love about my experience is that I don't have any, I'm not at all intimidated when somebody says, the thing that has really haunted me through these years is that I was raped by my uncle when I was 15 repetitively. And I've always felt afraid of certain situations, and it affects when I'm in a boardroom alone with a CEO or something like that. These kinds of things, right? I have the skill set to be able to help people work with these things, as well as the skill set of being able to, I don't have to tell them, oh, you probably ought to go see a therapist for that. Uh, I'm able to work in that realm, as well as the realm of helping people tie that into where it is that they're going. And another thing that relates to what you're both kind of talking about. I just got a text today from a lady down the street, and she told me that her daughter had started high school yesterday. And I said, "Well, did she like it?" And she said, "Well, of course not. She hated it." And I know the young lady involved, and she's very much an introvert and so forth. And I said, allow her to tell you what it is that she actually really needs. And if she needs some different kind of learning environment, allow her to explore that. Because one of the things that I love to ask people to do is go back in your life and write what it is that you did do, and then write what it is that you wish you had done. And let's go through your life, because a lot of people would go, God, a year of high school was enough. I wish that I would have done independent study, taken a couple of junior college courses, and then by the time that I hit a 4-year or wherever it is that I needed I would have been so much smarter, and I wouldn't have been bored and smoking too much weed in my senior year of high school or whatever it is. And there would have been, when people rewrite their lives, you find that there's a whole lot less wasted space because they know what they know now, and they would have made different decisions. And when you dig in on why would you have made that different decision, they will say things like, because I would have been more in tune with where it was that I wanted. I knew I needed to do that. I was just too afraid to. So we've got fear. I got married, and I knew that this guy wasn't right for me, but I did anyway because my friends and my family liked him. Peer pressure, and you find, why do these people make these decisions that make them feel like, gosh, where would I be if I was 10 years ahead of where I am now? And then what you find are these things are fear, pressure, trauma, like these different things. And you go, okay, so let's start making some decisions now about your life. And let's be sure that these things are not in the room. Let's make the decisions now that you wish that you had made all along, because we have the now and the future, right? And it helps people gain insight into why it is that they've made the good and the bad decisions that they've made all of their lives, and so that it can inform them on how to make the decisions that they're looking at now, and helps them really craft out their own real values, their own real internal roadblocks that have kind of been the shadows that have kept them back. And so when I'm doing that sort of thing, I am using the psychological as well as the strategic framework of now to help people with who it is that they really have the potential to be right now, if they're using the real authentic values that they have, as opposed to making decisions from a framework of, this is what people expect of me, this is what I probably should do, as opposed to, this is where my heart really wants to take me.
Wow.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, that expectation
Yeah.
piece, right? Like, especially with women and like high achievers, like that's often what it is that external expectation. And even our expectation of ourselves, right? Like the bars are so high, and even as you were speaking, explaining that, Jeremy, like I could just see, like, even just like it's that release of that pressure, right? Even when you
Yeah.
started talking earlier, I was like, when you
Huge.
spoke, I just felt this light, like this
Yeah.
Mm.
freedom place of like just lifting that weight off. And I think
Mhm.
that's, I mean, that's really what it is you're leaning into. It's just like giving yourself that permission, right? And leaning from a place of curiosity, right? I mean, like you said, like you are where you are, and you can learn a lot from the patterns and things that show up from your past that'll certainly help you and support you in what the decisions you get to make moving forward. So kind of going back to my earlier question, that I see that it's like, okay, wow, like you'd get to actually now use this information and see how, where would you make those pivots? How would you do maybe things differently? And I love that the invitation for the person to even just look at, okay, yeah, like what led into that decision. So I'm, as you're talking, like, oh, I really like this. Like, do I think I might do this with my clients too? Because it's fascinating, right? Like we put the hat on of curiosity, and I think it really shifts things a little bit versus that pressure and the criticism and the judgment, which
Yeah.
oftentimes is the automatic. But when we can interrupt that and just like change the conversation, it's so powerful. So I appreciate that. That's really insightful. Thank you.
I really want to jump in on that because you're talking about, and I know that a great deal of your listeners are females. And so there are the unique holdbacks, the unique
Mm,
pressures that there are on women, especially over the past 50 years to have and do it all. I know that this has been written about ad nauseum,
Yeah.
and the pressure that there is on women to be this standard of, career woman and mom, which is a really, really impossible standard to meet. And many women feel like that's what they need to do, and they're looking for a certain way to get that done. And it's really, really difficult. And, no wonder so many really men and women are on these SSRIs. It's because we're all just trying to cope with an impossible workload during the day. And so, the pressure on women is almost to exercise in an exceedingly masculine space
hmm
for much of their day when they're at work. They're in this masculine world, and so they're having to wear actions, behaviors, and so forth that perhaps they're not necessarily comfortable with or built to be or do. And then to come home and switch it into this feminine role where they are, mom and wife and these different things. It is a tremendous pressure that women have to live within convention. And
mm,
so, helping women, because I've also worked with women who they decide they're going to be stay-at-home moms. They are wonderful moms. They're stay-at-home moms, and then kids turn about 12, 13, and it's time to go back, and they feel like, but what do I know? What can I do? I'm not going to re-enter the workforce at the same
Yeah.
space where I left it. And I feel forlorn about that. I feel like, have I wasted these years? When they most certainly
mm,
have not. They have contributed to society in the most incredible way that really a person can, has been making wonderful human beings with, love and care and all of these sorts of things. But how does that person then really grasp onto the space that they're supposed to occupy in the next decade of their lives? It's a major transition for a woman to go back to work after a 10 to
Yeah.
15-year hiatus from work. It's a unique stress that men generally don't have to deal with. It's a huge shift, and there's personal esteem that is involved in it. There is, who you are and identity involved in it. And there is a certain amount of ego that we all are, all deal with.
Right.
Of, I got a master's degree. I worked for a couple of years, and then I raised children, and I still have a master's degree, but I'm not up to date on all these things. So it is something that I help people really lay out the plan, and so that they can walk into something feeling like this is consistent with their values. This, they know why they're doing it, where they want to build themselves into, and not feeling like they are a failure
mm,
because they're not walking into, perhaps a partner path in a law firm the way they were before they had their first child. You're working your way into maybe perhaps something else. So, these transitions in life, the transition from into empty nest, these things can be very difficult if you're not being intentional about these shifts in life and making sure that these decisions are in um, in the authentic space.
I love this, Jeremy. It's been a big part of my own journey. You're really touching on my journey recently, focusing on more of the feminine energy and not
Mhm.
constantly being in a masculine 24/7 testosterone driven cycle. Now we have testosterone, right? And we can pivot quickly, but being able to succeed in the authenticity, in the alignment of who we truly are and who I truly am, coming from a traumatic background and now working with women in those trauma backgrounds where they're leaving very abusive or narcissistic husbands, looking to make their way in the world, looking to finally succeed in the economic field, as well as working with those wealthy clients that I work with who the money hasn't answered the happiness factor.
Mm.
The money
Mm.
has just brought in a greater awareness. It's magnified, the lack of self-worth, the insecurity, the fear, the doubt, the overwhelm. And so, taking those things and providing that kind of framework to have a plan that says, yes, you can actually succeed and be unleashed and unstoppable and be limitless as who you truly are. It's such a journey. It's a deep journey. And I'm right there on it. So I deeply appreciate you addressing this. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be difficult to admit that you are unfulfilled when you are in a
Mm.
position of, I suppose, the modern and most trendy term to say here is in a position of privilege.
Yeah.
When you have, really good money coming in and high status this, and you're driving a nice car with a lot of leather and all these wonderful things, to say I really don't love my existence. And I don't know when I started not loving it. And I do love having money and it's a wonderful thing. But I also don't know where it is that I feel like I kind of stopped living.
Yeah.
Mm.
And those are really difficult questions. And these people often have this guilt of, well, for God's sake, what do I have to complain about? I really don't have anything to complain. I
Yeah.
don't I don't have the space where I deserve to complain about anything. These are
Mm.
purely first world problems.
Yeah.
And I really challenge that style of thinking because each one of us are these little humans on a spiritual journey. And what is it that we are all here to learn? Maybe we are here to learn that even in plenty, that there is more to our lives, and that we are really good at fostering this path of efficiency and intelligence and deadlines and so forth. But how's your marriage? How's your relationship with your children?
Yeah.
When's the last time that you picked up your guitar and played it?
Mm.
When was the last time that you called that couple that you really love going out with and went out with them? And the answer is we get so darn busy that we forget these other very important aspects of our lives. And another piece of this, and this is also incredibly common, many people grow up with wounds that have religion written on them.
Yes.
And many of these wounds are from, religions that perhaps were rules based, that felt very restrictive or what have you. And
A
so the
performance based.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And religion can be an absolutely incredible thing for people. It can also be something that can raise us into having some relatively weird ideas. And so then what people end up associate, because I sometimes ask people, what is your spiritual walk? And they immediately say, well, I don't, go to church. I don't like church. And I'm like, that's not what I asked.
Mm.
I asked, what is your relationship with where do you go when you die? Like, what is this? What
Mm-hmm.
is it all about? And how often do you actually check into that? I'm not talking about where you find yourself at 8:30 on a Sunday morning. I'm talking about what is the meaning of your life? And how can we connect you with that? Because that is where the existential meaning comes from that
Yeah.
fuels the why
Yeah.
of my life. The why are you doing this? Why are you achieving these things? What are you leaving to the world other than money?
Yeah.
To your children, which is also a fantastic thing, but it's not everything. And do you feel like you have experienced the peak of your consciousness, the peak of your human potential? And do you have a plan of how you are going to do that? Do you know what to do? And so once people have a greater concept of what their space is in this world, how to actually relax and not live in this kind of world of doing,
Yeah.
they have a greater sense of where it is that they want to go and how they want to spend the minutes in their day. And
Mhm.
so, this work, we get trained a lot early in our lives in how to think and meet deadlines. And school is quite
Ah,
good at that. I mean, you graduate with your bachelor's degree and you'd make an excellent mechanic in a 1957 Oldsmobile factory. But what it doesn't teach is the real meaning of life and how to continue seeking that and attaining it. And it's personal, it's spiritual, it's professional. It's all these things together that have to be
yeah.
developed in the same sort of way with the same kind of attention.
It's foundational. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it really is. Yeah, I know you're burning over there, Alex. I can see it.
Well, it always, because as you're talking, Jeremy, I mean, what comes up for me and what I experience it too, and I often experience with clients is shifting from that doing over to the being. Because our brains have operated up until now about do, and it's about deadlines and it's about the rules and stuff. It's operating over here. And now we're interrupting that pattern. We're coming over here. And I know, like, I'll often ask people, like, well, what do you like outside of work? What do you want to spend your time on? And the automatic is like, I don't know. Like, and you talked about picking up the guitar. Like, I'm curious to know how you support your clients shifting into, okay, this is how I would spend my time. Like, I'm gonna share a story with you. So being fully transparent here, made the decision that with my second daughter, I was really gonna take time to be with her. With my first daughter, I kind of built a business, gave birth to a business and a baby at the same time. And I really felt like I really missed out because I wasn't fully present with her. So I changed that with my second daughter. Then I found myself so used to thinking and being creative and like, wanting to do this and that. And I actually Googled like, what do you do on maternity leave? Like, how do you spend your time? Like, I really wasn't sure because, that's just not
That
what
slow down.
yeah, and this, I'm like, okay, what does this look like? How do you structure your day and things like that? And so it kind of has me think about that, right? Because it is a shift of doing to being, and how do you help your clients transition to that so they aren't coming up with like, well, I love to work. Like that's what I've heard
Yeah.
before. Well, I love working. I love what I do. And it's like, it's not about saying not do what you love to do. It's more, how do you create that space for yourself to recharge, to take care of yourself, to fill up the other buckets in your life so you are, really living that
Yeah.
fulfilled life in all areas, right? So it's not just like the work profession up here, but yeah, you are creating 10 out of 10 relationships, right? You are giving yourself that care for yourself as well, right? Oxygen mask on first. Yeah, so that's what's coming up because I experience it with clients, and I'm curious to know for you how you guide clients through that piece.
Well, very few hospice nurses say that one of the last words that people say is that they wish that they had worked more. And so, when
Yeah.
we're dealing with high achievers, we're dealing with people who really value data. And when they can see it on a
Mm.
pie chart, then they can really understand, how do I spend my day? And gosh, this orange thing is work. Like that's my whole working day. And then I come
Mm,
home and I have a little bit of time where I talk with my spouse. And then this is caring for others. This little thing down here, this is caring for others, a couple of hours. And then this is scrolling TikTok, watching funny videos. And then this is me trying to fall
yeah,
asleep.
yeah,
And so that you see this and you see this total imbalance in the way that the
mm,
day is spent. And when they can see it on a pie chart, they go, heaven's sake, that's a lot of imbalance there. It's because
yeah,
what I came to you for is that I want to really discover myself. But what I see that I'm doing is I'm just killing it at work, which is great. Very successful, very well respected, and everything like that. That's really wonderful. And these other hours in my day, I'm not really spending in the most effective way possible.
yeah,
What if I could eke out like an hour a day where I sat down at the piano and relearned some of the old songs that I really enjoyed uh, you know, knowing and learning.
yeah,
And when am I going to carve out the time to do the trips in my life that I really have
mm,
wanted to do, thought about for a really long time? I want to go to the North Pole or whatever the thing is, and really make it happen because we tend to live a day by day life. So when they can see the metrics, when they can recognize, and you can even extrapolate that out. This is how much time that you spend during the year on
yeah,
work
Mhm.
and family. And then here's the little bit of you. And it's, basically you enjoying a couple of glasses of wine once a month with some friends at a winery.
yeah,
Uh, it's really not enough. And so doing that and helping them recognize that they can both be tremendously successful in the things that they value and also spend a little bit more time on the things that they love. Sometimes these things
Mm.
are spirituality. Sometimes these things are, they have a bicycle in the garage that's been hung up for 20 years. They want to dust it off and actually start doing hill climbs again. Sometimes it's that and actually having people commit to spending that loving time with themselves and not just simply
mm,
always choosing to serve others. This is also another major issue that women deal with is that they always feel like they have to serve and they have to
Mm.
be there for others because a lot
yeah,
of people depend on them and children and these different sorts of things. But you said oxygen mask on first. The
yeah,
person needs to make sure that their why and their foundation is really clear to them and that they're living that on a regular basis. And so that they are not at some point running out of gas and just going, I don't have any more. I just don't
yeah.
have any more. I don't know when I ran out of gas. Well, it was probably maybe 11 years ago when you stopped doing anything for yourself.
Mm.
I feel like burnout is hugely on the rise, hugely. And something that I align with along with that is that create healing occurs in the creative side of the brain, right? It's just creativity unleashes healing. And you're really touching in on that. And one of the things that Alex and I teach through our neurocoaching is the power of celebration because our brains
Mm.
are also wired for reward. And with high achievers, invariably, I will ask my clients, so that is fantastic. Thank you for sharing. What are you going to do to celebrate that? Oh, I'm, I don't know. I'm going to take 15 minutes and, you know, it's like we just lose that capacity to actually lean in and reward ourselves and celebrate life. And it unleashes so many things in our beautiful mind, body, soul connection, right? That are really powerful. So I'm thankful that you're, touching on these things that are so important in our journeys and in our ability to actually enjoy life. Lay
Well,
on that deathbed with the hospice nurse and say, hey, I really lived full out and enjoyed my life, but it looked like this. It wasn't because I sacrificed my health and my relationships and my friendships. So
You
yeah.
you
Well,
have to do those celebrations for yourself. I was on a leadership team one time, and we were planning the Christmas party for the company and everything like that. And somebody brought up, oh, this year, why don't we give away fanny packs to everybody? I'm like, along with the $100 gift card, because that's cool. And they said, no, no, in place of the $100 gift card. I'm like, well, everybody's going to remember last year that they got $100 and they got a fanny pack this year. And the CFO said, oh, people don't care about that. They just want to walk away with something. And I'm like, are you crazy? Like, you're going to give them a fanny pack with the company's name on it? How insulting is that? So, and we gave away fanny packs and everybody was pissed. And so
I've
that,
actually
that
been in that experience at a conference. Yeah, it's like where every year it's a little bit less. I'm like, okay, you got us on a reel now, man.
I got a water bottle. I know how much this costs, right? So, you know, these you have to do the things for yourself because the external rewards are you can't count on those things. You
mhm.
can't count on being
Yeah.
rewarded for the unique and wonderful thing that you bring to the table everywhere you go.
Yeah.
And so you're absolutely right. There has to be for you a system of rewarding yourself and treating yourself to doing the things that you uniquely love. And it might be driving out to a hot spring and just sitting in it for a couple of days. It might be the rejuvenation of going to a spa, whatever it is that really floats your boat. You've got to carve that stuff out and give yourself that and value yourself because in this world, it doesn't often come in an appropriate way externally.
Wow, so true. Um, Alex Leanne, I know you're wanting to say something too. And
Carol, it's like you're, well, I think I just wanted to, you said something there that,
I can
I
see your
guess it kind of,
face. I can read
yeah,
you.
I know. You said something there that, well, it answered the question because my brain is always like, as you're speaking, I'm like, okay, I have like all my clients and even, the past me of like what my response would come up, right, as you're speaking. And what you said was something about like just taking a look around,
Yeah.
right? Like finding the bike that's in the garage that's got the dust on, right? Taking off the cover off the piano,
Yeah.
right? Going to see, okay, maybe it was like boxing workouts that you used to do. I find that a lot of times we're trying to look outside of us.
Mhm.
And and really, this what a lot of this episode was about is really actually looking inside of you. And it's that when people are like, well, what else? Because I was like, well, what else am I doing my time? I love to work. I love doing this. This is how I want to spend my time. And it's good doing something that you love that's in addition to work is definitely going to fill you up. And it just takes a second to look around to see, what are the projects that you started and didn't finish, right? Like I'm sure that everyone is surrounded by them, right? So I think just like the invitation to the audience and the listeners today is to really like take a second to really look around. Like what is around your house, your home, any books are just, what did you used to love to do as a
What
kid that
lights you
brought you
up?
joy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it.
And getting it scheduled on the calendar, right? Like I think that's just so important to make that commitment, that promise to yourself. And I love to sort of tying it to even, like, as if you're getting the gift card from your leadership retreat, like you are the CEO of your life. This is your gift card to yourself to then go out and have the experience that you get to experience. And so sorry, I was just kind of like, I just sort of was tying it all together because it is really easy, to just go in and live day in and day out, find yourself on the mundane train and you want to get off it. So give yourself that ticket, get off the train and really like it's inside of you. Like whatever it is, however you want to live life, the things you want to experience, how you want to create those relationships and life is inside of you. And I think it kind of wraps back up to talking about your experience, right? From the psychedelic experience,
Yeah.
right? Like it's the same thing. It's still inside of you. It's just being able to pause the brain for a moment to get off, the constant, hamster wheel to take a moment to connect with yourself and your being and what's really important to you there.
Yeah, it really is about that. And the psychedelic work that I do with people, I often am in working with people on a lot of the issues that they're dealing with, and they get to a point where once they do the psychedelic, which the legal psychedelic is ketamine, and it's prescribed by a doctor and it's overseen and all these sorts of things. And once they get to that point and they're able to, oftentimes for the very first time, really nail in on themselves what it is that's important to them, what it
Mm,
is that it feels like to actually float in bliss for a period of time and not
mm,
constantly be thinking about what they owe somebody else today,
yeah.
but what they owe themselves in terms of love
Mm,
and affection and attention and forgiveness and all of
mm,
these things. It's something that is a profound experience for people
yeah.
to actually be in that state. And the protocol for doing this is that you do the medicine about 4 to 6 times. And so that you're really each time honing in on and nailing in the long-term good that this can do in
Mm,
helping change your mind, rewrite those neural pathways, and so that you're not just simply falling into the top 5 thoughts that you generally have, that you're expanding that and that you're coming out of this with a way to truly reward and appreciate yourself in a manner that is, quite frankly, much more self-respecting
yeah.
than the way that we, tend to push ourselves so hard.
You go into this in your book, There Is More, right?
I do. I talk about my first experience and I talk about the ways in which some of these experiences that I have had have been um so profound to me. There was one time when I thought that I might actually be dead. And it was deep into one of these experiences, and I started getting afraid. And it's what they call, the bad trip. I don't like to use that because really, what is it that I learned from this?
Wow.
I learned that for some strange reason, I feared not existing. And I needed to see if I
Mm,
could regain control of everything through doing all the things in my
yeah.
life that help me gain control of things. Let me organize my things. That helps me be in control. Let me
Mm,
fold my laundry. That helps
mm,
me be in control. Let me do the
yeah.
dishes because at least I can clean this room. When really all of these things are the periphery of things
Yeah.
that help us feel in control when we're not in control inside. And when I was able to process this whole thing afterwards, I didn't feel like I really needed to do all of these silly things in order to feel like I had control of my life. I could
Mm,
just simply love each moment the way that it is because someday this life is going to be gone. And will I have actually experienced every single moment to its greatest extent? And
mm,
that was the last time I had an experience that was challenging because I learned to kind of lean into it and go, huh, what is this experience? What am I supposed to learn from
mm,
feeling like maybe I'm not here right now? What is it that I need to readjust in my mind in order to embrace these concept of what would it be like for me to not exist in the flesh anymore? What would it be like for me to sit here and grieve all of the times that I have felt rejected, all the times that I felt left behind or sad or offended or anything like that? What would it feel like to grieve all of that at once? And then what would it feel like for me to understand that everybody goes through this? Everybody cries, everybody fears, everybody experiences these deep emotions. And how does it help me to understand that everybody is just trying to do their best in a particularly difficult world to live in? And it
mm,
expands your level of empathy for the fact that
yeah.
everybody is just trying their tails off to live the best life that they possibly can. And sometimes we get this message early on in our lives that that requires achievement, and that if we
Mhm.
get the best grades and if we get the best job and if we get
Yeah.
the highest title, that that's going to fill that. And it's not true.
No.
There's so much more to living a fulfilled life, and you have to pay attention to it. You have to foster it. You have to build it in order to live that fulfilled
I
life.
love that word foster. You have to foster it. Yeah, it's so true, right? This is profound. I've got chills because, I experienced that with my recent heart attack, like coming face to
Ah,
face with death. And um, it's something that is can be so worthwhile to go through and to lean in and go, what am I doing? What does it look like? Is it fulfillment, truly fulfillment, And um, you're being able to go on these journeys with the psychedelics, super powerful. It's incredible, right? That this, I've heard, in fact, I was just hearing recently about a woman who went on a journey, had tremendous trauma, had a
Mm.
very successful coaching business, multiple seven figures, and was within 2 weeks of the what's it called? Uh,
Ketamine.
ketamine, that she was rating her trauma journey with, I think she was having this administered 3 times a week in a safe legal environment. And within 2 weeks went from a 10 to a 1 with this
Wow.
experience.
Amazing.
Yeah,
So
incredible.
can you walk us through a little bit through like the process of what it looks like? Because it sounds like it's not necessarily like when you talk about it being
Yeah.
sort of, monitored and things like that. So like if the audience is really curious to learn a little bit more, like what that kind
Oh
of looks
yeah.
like to go through an experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So a little bit about the background is I meet with somebody, see if we work well together, and then I refer these people to a group that I am a part of called Journey Clinical, and they are evaluated to see if they're a good candidate for this kind of medicine, and evaluated by a psychiatrist and a nurse to see if their body is right for this. And then, pardon me, they are prescribed the medicine and it is sent to their home. And then the wonderful thing about this is that we can set up a Zoom link and they can do it in their homes, and I can stay with them on the
Wow.
screen. We do the relaxation exercise. First off, we have to do a couple of real therapy sessions.
Yeah.
What is your intention? What do you want to get out of this? What are you struggling with? What is it? What are our safe words? How do we listen to each other even if we're in a tough place, right? And then when it comes, we do a 2-hour session where they take the medicine, they swish it around while we're doing relaxation and grounding and everything like that. They lay back and they have this experience. It lasts somewhere around 90 minutes. And I'm there. I check on them periodically. And then when they start coming out of this, they should really not drive for a couple of hours. They should journal. They should, make a nice cup of tea and not be stressed out, not answer emails and so forth. And then we do a session after that's called an integration. What did you see? What did you learn? What did you smell? Who are you now? And then we do it again, the 2-hour session where I'm
Mhm.
there with them. And then another integration session. And then the next 2-hour session is on their own with me on call. And so that if they start not having a good time or feeling insecure, they can call me. I'll talk to them right away.
Yeah.
And they do it another 4 times like that, kind of on their own, where we do the integration session after each one. And each time they go, yeah, I saw the trauma.
Mhm.
And this time I was able to hold, the traumatized me in my own arms and just stroke my face and say that it's okay. Or I felt this mother energy around me that made me feel like I never actually was alone. I just thought that I was alone, and,
Mhm.
and integrate that into their experience, their lives. So that this person that you had that did this, they were meeting with a therapist in between and
Yeah.
making sense of what they saw, what they felt, where they went. And that is by far the most effective way to do this kind of medication that has the long-term effect of helping people, quite frankly, change their minds.
That's amazing. I know a friend who's on a year-long journey in a program with this, and with very, very micro dosing. Um, she has just raved about it, about being able to go into her subconscious and
Mhm.
see the limiting beliefs and literally transform them. And I was curious if you're in this situation, is there something that you can be given to undo the experience, or once you're in it, you're in it, and
Okay.
you're being there, being able to support them through it if they're in an experience that maybe they don't care for, or like you were referring to earlier, is it also possible through guidance? Yeah.
Totally awesome question. So The wonderful thing about ketamine is that it is so fast acting. You're up and then you're coming down. Okay.
Okay.
And the preparatory work that helps people understand what they're going to experience, that they truly are in control and that I'm right there and all of these sorts of things, it's less of a it's less of an intimidating thing. And
Got
so
it.
I've never really had it where somebody is in a space where they can't calm down. That would be there's a crisis link that we can both reach out to at the time if there's an issue like that. But that's
No.
extremely uncommon
Okay.
because the preparatory work really goes through. If you're starting to feel this way, this is what we're going to do together. We're going to breathe it
Mm,
out. We're going to sit there. You're going to look at me, and we're going to do this thing that you love. You're going to think about that stuffed animal that you had when you were a baby and you're a little child. You're going to hold that in your arm. You can imagine holding that
yeah.
and these sorts of things. And it is very easy to help people feel so that it's not like they need like a Narcan would
Yeah.
do for a heroin overdose or something like that. It's very fast in and out so that you can go, this is not going to last forever. You get about a half an hour left and then it's out of you and it's fine. As opposed to something like a more heavy thing like an LSD where
Yeah.
you can be flying for 12 hours at in some
Yeah.
cases. And at a certain point, you're like 9 hours in going, oh my God, that's enough.
Yeah, that does not sound fun.
Woo! Yeah, that's something you work up to, right?
Yeah.
But the ketamine is much less of an intimidating thing. And I think a lot of people also have this fear. Is this gonna break my brain? Is this going to change my mind? Is this going to cause like damage to me? Now, something like a methamphetamine, okay, I'm just going to bring this up because these medicines have been
Yeah.
wrongfully placed and categorized like that. These amphetamines, they have really truly the power to burn your dopamine and serotonin receptors and to reduce them to the point where your moods crash in a really really dangerous way if you're not
Yeah.
consistently staying up on them and so forth. Whereas the psychedelic medicine, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't
Mm,
do that. It is just simply something that for a period of time, it's like it opens up this freeway of your brain. All of a sudden, you didn't realize you've got the 5, you've got the 80, you've got the 193, you've got all these different wonderful freeways in your brain that you
yeah.
didn't even know were there. And you can travel them all. And when you come back, you can remember that they were there. And
Yeah, that's
so it's
incredible.
like you expand your mind as opposed to burning the physical nature of the way that you think out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's much more of a psychedelic is really the concept of mind expansion. So that's
Mm.
really how it works. You're not going to um, eat so many mushrooms per se that you end up going crazy. In order to
Yeah.
kill yourself with mushrooms, you would have to eat 50 pounds of mushrooms, and that's
Okay.
that's a cat litter bag, and your
Yeah.
stomach would explode first. And so um, they're not dangerous in the way that Nancy Reagan told us that they were,
Mm,
and they should be used responsibly.
yeah. Wow, this is so
Yeah.
powerful. I'm so thankful for you being here today. And I know we're going to wrap up, and I'm pretty sure we've got to have a part two. This has just been amazing. What are you saying? I see Alex over there. Yes, yes, for
Oh yeah, I
sure.
totally lost track of the time. Like this is just fascinating, right? Like I think it
Yeah,
just opens our minds, right? Up to
yeah,
all these different opportunities and experiences of getting, healing, right?
yeah.
Being able to heal, being able to also thrive, being able to also just like experience that freedom. Like every time, Jeremy, you open up and speak into like the experience, what gets created, like I just keep feeling this sense of lightness, which,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, we don't, many of us walk around feeling very heavy. And what I learned over the past several years is that that's really not what life is about. It's not about heaviness. It's about the freedom. It is about feeling light. It is about
the
the joy
joy.
and
Yeah.
living life, right? And whatever it gets to look like for yourself. And so what I love about, Carol and I and being with the Unleash Unstoppable podcast is the being able to bring all these different modalities and opportunities for our audience to really experience, explore, see what works for them, to be able to tap into that, because we are talking about years and years of programming in society and this heaviness. And that, guess what?
Seriousness.
That's not the only way, that there is so much light and freedom and possibility. And so I really appreciate being here today and sharing your journey with us, and sharing this experience and this opportunity, this possibility. I mean, my mind is blown, and I'm like, yes, let's keep going, because it is so unique. And it's really, when you can have someone with you, a guide, right, to really help you on through the process. I mean, I think that's really powerful too. You're not alone. I mean, this is why we're here, because we want our audience to know that they're not alone, that we get the audience, and that we have an opportunity to bring some amazing guests like yourself, Jeremy, to help them show like another way, and that you're here and you're a potential guide that could walk them through this experience. And so, yeah, thank you for sharing this opportunity, and just shedding light on something that, I mean, I personally haven't heard much about that until today. So it's been so fascinating to have my mind open to this opportunity,
Mind
experience.
expanding.
Yeah.
Jeremy, any final words?
Thank you for the opportunity of being on your podcast. I've really, really enjoyed it. And my book, There Is More, Living a Life of Expansiveness in a World That Is Not Perfect, it's available on Amazon. It's available on audiobook through Audible. And so you can get the ebook, you can get the physical book, you can get the audiobook. There is no excuse. And so it really goes through my kind of like whole philosophy of rising above and redemption and positivity.
Are you reading the audiobook?
I'm not so good at that.
I would completely disagree with that, Jeremy. I'm like, just the way. No, I mean, I think it'd be fantastic reading on your own book. So I was just curious, but I'm like, just the way you show up. I'm like, oh man, I'm like, I can imagine listening to your audiobook would be such a hoot. And I imagine like your book itself, just with what you share with us today, is a fascinating read. So we will have those links in the show notes for the listener to go ahead and get that book.
And for your podcast as well. He's got an amazing podcast. And thank you, Jeremy. Thank you for being here. This has been amazing. And listener, really loving you. I feel Jeremy's compassion. And, it's a key part of mentoring and guidance, because we get to connect and relate and go through experiences together. So thank you, Jeremy, so much. And it's been a joy to have you.
Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity. Thanks so much.
Yeah. And also thanks to our listeners for listening to another episode of the Unleash Unstoppable podcast. We'll see you all next Thursday. Head on over to the show notes and grab Jeremy's book. See you next week.
Yeah. Ciao for now.
This episode of Unleashed and Unstoppable is brought to you by Easy Way Network.
If you want to amplify your reach, visibility, and generate more sales leads, joint venture partners, and increase your bottom line by one simple login, then Easy Way Network is your solution to greatness. Our all-in-one marketing solutions hub can help boost your event, podcast, and increase your relationship equity by the click of a button. What are you waiting for? EasyWayNetwork.com.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Unleashed Unstoppable podcast with your hosts, Alexandra Carter and Carol Register.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others. Post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review, and subscribe.
That's all for this episode, Wildly Ambitious Leaders. See you next week.